Clubhouse.
Welcome back to Pod Clubhouse's press pass coverage of 2024's ATX, a television experience, season 13. This is Paul.
This is Caroline.
We're here to talk about day one, Thursday of the event.
Yeah, so we always enjoy staying at the Driscoll Hotel because a lot of the events are located right inside the hotel, and that's always been such an easy thing, especially with these blistering hot summers. It's so nice to be able to get dressed and ready to go and just walk downstairs, go where you need to go. The hotel is beautiful. It has a lot of different amenities like a bar, restaurant.
Ghosts.
They have a tour of the art on the walls and gives the history of the hotel, which is extensive, as well as they had one night they were offering the bolo and bourbon night where you actually sit and make your very own bolo and you do like a tasting of different bourbons. I thought that was so unique and different. So this is the type of festival where you get to enjoy parts of Austin and all the cool things that they offer, as well as the great programming that we had at ATX.
Day one kicked off, at least for Pod Clubhouse, with my arrival in Austin. I stepped in midstream in the pitch competition. We've never gone and seen the pitch competition before.
We've never had the opportunity because it's often so early in the festival for us. It's one of those things where people are kind of coming in town still. And so we never have had a chance. I was so glad you got to go and find out what it's all about.
So the setup is people have been practicing these pitches all year in between festivals. They have cut down the number of applicants down to 10. So these 10 people, or in some cases pairs, kind of like Shark Tank, right?
Sure.
Have 4 minutes to present using Canva as their slideshow generator of choice. This time it was 4 panelists who are actual industry people, producers or assistants to producers, people that would have some insight as to whether or not the show that they're being pitched could possibly make it in Hollywood. And after the pitch competition, although there is a winner, what they described to us was actually like every one of the finalists winds up getting support throughout the following year, making connections, trying to get into rooms, trying to get into meetings, trying to meet with showrunners to see if their show can be made.
What an extraordinary opportunity to be given when we're here in Texas and we're thinking we do have some pockets of industry production going on all around Texas. But at the same time, to feel like you can actually get in front of a producer or a director or a showrunner or anything that's amazing. I feel like this festival has a real supportive vibe about it the whole time. But this in particular, I felt like, wow, these people have such an amazing opportunity. And if you're listening and you're thinking, well, I have a pitch, but I just really had no idea where to even begin. Where do I even start? This is something where you can get in on the pitch competition and hopefully get your pitch listened to. And like Paul said, get support throughout the year, even if you're not the winner.
And they got feedback and questions from the panelists, but it was meant to be very fast paced. There was really only a couple of questions to really clarify the pitch maker's own understanding of their own show. I don't know how much you expect a TV show to be mapped out before it's pitched. And I would say it's probably less than you think. It is thought out to the extent that the person should be able to describe the starting point, all of the characters, and a potential season 1 plot if it's that kind of show.
Okay.
But is it a written script? Is it several written scripts? No.
Okay.
It doesn't seem to be that.
That's super good to know because honestly, even coming in and just being an audience member and getting to watch how does a pitch work, I think that would be invaluable to most people. But that's a good point. I would think I do have to have a script. So you're telling me I would just need to have an idea. It's got to be solid. You got to have to be able to describe it. I need to have my characters. I need to know some idea of some amount of an arc that we're doing or
something
not even
like
that far.
Yeah, I think you would need to be able to answer the questions, where are you starting and where are you going, and be able to do it convincingly. And I'm sure that some of these people do have starter scripts that then, after going through the development process would probably undergo a lot of changes because they don't get up and give all their qualifications. They have 4 minutes. They don't get up and give their life story. They get up and say, this is the show.
Right.
They jump in right away describing the show. They actually try to catch your attention with some sort of funny question or semi-joke or something so that they stand out from the other presenters.
Those are excellent tips. So was there anything else that you felt like maybe the winner did that maybe the other people didn't do, or anything that you can give any tips to our listener of like, how do you stand out, or how do you present your story so that you either, get their hearts involved or their minds involved, or however are you going to capture their attention?
The winner won because their idea was instantly sellable in today's market. It's not that they were coming with a completely unique take. In fact, a lot of these pitches, they were mostly for sitcoms. And I don't know if you've seen, say, a TV show or a movie where they talk about other TV shows and movies and their development, right? A shorthand to do that is to make comps. Like the movie Event Horizon was sold as The Shining in Space, just a way to sum up familiar things using other familiar things. And so like a lot of these, they would say, well, it's sort of like Parks and Rec with a dash of Breaking Bad, or, something like that. Then you throw in the component of a diverse cast, or not even just the cast, like the main, if it's a family, workplace, whatever, some way to have it make sense for the viewer that this is an underrepresented group. That's the key to the sellability of a pilot right now.
Okay, so that's fascinating because a lot of people would probably go in thinking, I need to have an idea that would have mass appeal to like lots and lots and lots of people. When in reality, it sounds a little bit like it's okay to come in and pick like a smaller group, like you said, underrepresented population, whatever that may be, and really just focus on that.
As of today, they didn't spell it out, but that was the subtext of what they were saying when they said that they could sell it right now, was the winner was focused on a Black family that was a fish out of water story where they had inherited a country club from a wealthy person that had owned a country club, passed away. The father of the family was like the greenskeeper. I forget what the mom of the family was, but they were involved at a low level in the country club. Instead of leaving the country club to his heir, his son, he leaves it to the family. And so all of a sudden they enjoy this elevated status that they're not used to. Meanwhile, the heir, this is the through line for the season, is trying to undermine them and recapture what he believes is his inheritance.
Like right away, I understood the conflict. I understood, why this would be such a difficult scenario for the family to step into. Like, how do I run a country club now? And of course, we have like the racial discrimination portion that would play into that. I could see where you're really like flipping it on its head, like what you're expecting to see. I think that sounds very fascinating to me and something that I would watch. So very cool. And so those are the people who actually won for this year.
They're the winners.
Okay, so they will continue on. Did they give a name or anything that we can listen for or watch for so we would know like, oh, that came from the ATX Pitch Festival?
Oakdale Country Club, if it goes forward with its
original name. Right. Okay, so cool, you guys. So listeners, if you guys ever see that come across your screen, know that the roots of it came from the pitch competition at ATX. Now, I know, Paul, that you got a chance to go to the red carpet and do some photography work for them, but also listen and find out what's coming out. So tell us a little bit about that.
This was an interesting year for Pod Clubhouse in that we did get to do the red carpet. The programming at ATX this year was a little condensed compared to some past years. And so instead of having multiple red carpets like they have had in years past, they put everybody that was going to be on the red carpet on this one red carpet.
For press, I feel like that's actually very helpful, right? Because we just have to go there one time and be able to get set up one time. And that doesn't sort of take away from other panels that are going to be going on the rest of the weekend. Does that work if people, this was a Thursday, some panels weren't going to happen until like Saturday. So some of those people didn't probably have a chance then.
Thinking of who was there, say like some of the Sunday people, like say the Pretty Little Liars cast or the Suits cast, none of them were there. And they would have been pretty cool to have on the red carpet. So maybe it is a missed opportunity to do it this way, but this is what we got. And it was indoors. So that was really nice.
Again, you guys, the heat has been pretty rough this year. So I'm really glad that they moved a lot of the stuff indoors. And also we had a lot less things where we had to walk outside to really go to different events. Or if we did, it was just like across the street over at the Stephen F. Austin, over at the Roaring Fork, or wherever. That was really nice. I'm glad they did it that way. So always pros and cons when you change things, but I like the idea that they condensed it down and tried to just have it be one time. And that way, again, press can move along and go to other panels and cover it. So who were some people you saw on the red carpet?
We saw the entire Rosenthal family minus mom. Phil and his brother and his son and his daughter came through.
We always love them. They're from Someone Feed Phil.
Somebody Feed Phil, yeah. And if you're listening to wonder, why is this guy famous? He's sort of the Larry David of Everybody Loves Raymond. He was the behind-the-scenes brains that made that show tick. We also had two of the actresses from Animal Control. This was my very first time ever taking photographs of people that know how to be photographed. so it was like they knew how to like smile and pose and things for the camera, but it was all a very educational experience for this photographer. Also, we had some people that don't normally get red carpet treatment. We had the writers behind the show Industry on HBO. That's one of the benefits of coming to something like ATX is for both parties, whether it's industry people or the audience members, people like those guys never get to appreciate firsthand whether or not people like their show or are interested in talking to them or anything like that. Here, they had to stop at every red carpet photographer and every journalist and answer some questions and take some pictures. And I'm sure that this was kind of unique for them. You got the sense that this is not an everyday thing for those two guys. Now, Noah Hawley, who is the creator of Fargo, came by for, I think, 1 minute total, stopping just enough time in front of each photographer for us to snap his picture in whatever state he wanted to take that picture, and then he left. He did not answer any questions. And after him was the actor and creator of the show Fantasmas, Julio Torres,
who I remembered from Los Spookies that we had seen at ATX a couple of years back with Fred Armiston. And I thought he was really funny in that show. So I was very curious about his new show.
Like Los Spookies, this is also on HBO. After the red carpet, we got to go as a group over to the Fantasmas premiere at the Paramount Theater. And so we got to see that a couple weeks before it came out. It's currently playing right now on HBO on Sundays. Although this is a brand new, I guess, paradigm of show, at least for the nighttime R-rated TV show market. I think it's built very intentionally to appeal to the TikTok generation, you know, the short attention span, because the show is structured like we joked around. It's structured a little like Sesame Street.
Which is not derogatory. I want to be very clear on that. It's not a juvenile show. It's just the way that it's segmented into smaller sections.
Right.
So, and I hesitate to say that, you know, short attention span, like, and it's not in a negative way. It's just that it's quick and it's witty. And it's like, it tells that little section of the story that it wants to tell, and then it moves on. I liked the through line that this was basically like you were like in Julio's mind. Just like all of us, you might be in, you know, work or wherever you are, sitting on the subway, sitting on the bus, whatever you're doing, driving your car, and your mind kind of wanders a little bit. Those kind of create the vignettes that we get throughout. There is mass appeal for the concept of small stories within like a larger storyline.
But they're complete non sequiturs.
Yeah, no, yeah. Just like a daydream would be, though, right? Like one doesn't have to do with the other necessarily.
Well,
it's even just like your mind wanders.
Even the main plot. So like Sesame Street, imagine Big Bird loses radar and needs to go find him, right? That's the plot of the episode. But meanwhile, you get to go talk to the Count, or you get to go to Elmo's world. But in between those things, you catch up with Big Bird looking for radar. That's basically the structure that we saw in the premiere. Julio loses an earring and is looking for it throughout.
That's like his journey the whole time.
And that even those plot points, you still get the sense it's so stylized, even though like those asides are clearly from his mind's eye, that the highly stylized, like especially when like riding in the car, they're making no attempt to make it like a real car. You get the sense like it's also through this very whimsical lens that is Julio's eye. So the whole thing is very Julio.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I mean, I'll be honest. When I had no idea what we were going to see when we sat down to watch it, I didn't know what I was going to think about it at all. I really didn't come in with any preconceived notions. I knew Julio from Los Spookies, and then that was pretty much it. When I first started watching it, I was a little bit confused. I would kind of cock my head, like, wow, this is like very outside the box. This is something that I didn't expect. I found myself at first being a little bit confused. So if you're watching, I want to encourage you to give it a little bit of time, because at first I was a little like, I'm not really sure what I'm watching. And like you said, like things like there's a cab driver, and it's very funny the way they set it up, because he has his own like Uber-esque service, but it's funny and it's silly, and I really liked the character that they had created. And for a lot of people, I think they might end up saying like that was the best character, that they really, really liked the driver of the car service. It took a minute though for me to like acclimate to the way that he was telling the story and how far different jokes would go. So there was sort of this section that was talking about his mind kind of wandered to like a sitcom setting, and there was like an Alf type character, right?
Right.
So for people who are like, who's Alf? It's, you guys will have to look it up, but basically it's like a puppet type character who comes and lives living with a family on Earth. That's pretty much all you need to know. So, but the way that they twisted the story, and I don't want to reveal it or ruin it for anybody, but I'm not going to tell you the punchline to it, but the way that they twisted the story was very unexpected for me. So then I kind of sat back and I was like, okay, all right, you got to like lose all preconceived notions about what you think this show might be about or how far they're going to take a joke. Once I did that, I mean, they had some big names, like Steve Buscemi was in one of the little vignettes.
And Paul Dano was in that one, Melf.
Right. And so the cool thing about it is that I liked how, I think because they are very short little segments, they are able to get different stars to come on and do like these little cameos essentially. And you don't have to have that person go throughout the whole show or anything. They can just sort of have this moment, sort of, I mean, again, we're comparing to Sesame Street, which makes it, I don't want to sound derogatory
just
about it.
Just the structure.
But also, but same like Saturday Night Live or any like sketch comedy type thing where you have these segments, right? But because they're doing it in this larger, he's on this journey to try to find his earring, you have like a through line, right? I thought that it was very clever. By the end of watching that first episode, I was like, okay, this guy has very creative imagination. He's clearly has a lot of ideas and is very funny. Some jokes, like for every sketch show, are funnier than others. Some hit you in a different way than others. But on the whole, I found myself chuckling at quite a bit of it. And when you're not prepared to go into like a comedy and you find yourself laughing, I think that's a lot harder laugh to get than if you go in and you know what you're going to see and you're kind of like set up like, okay, this is going to be hilarious. Like you're already laughing at like the opening credits just because you're ready to laugh. I didn't know what the show was going to be about. So I wasn't necessarily ready to chuckle. And like the Melf thing, again, it just really caught me off guard. I was like, what is this show? And so that sort of kind of broke the ice with me and started to like allow me to absorb the show better. It is a very unusual show. People might have a little, like a hot second to understand what they're watching. I say that, again, we are not the target audience. I think the target audience is probably more like young 20s, maybe even late teens. You can go later than that, but I'm not the target audience. But I found it hilarious. Definitely ones hit harder than others, but I get to understand it. And I think it's a show that the way that it's set up has a chance to really go for a while, because the way that you have those little vignettes, you don't have to necessarily stick with any one idea. And he didn't. He bounced all over the place. I thought scenes like the doctor's office and how there was like a clock ticking on the wall of like a countdown timer of like how long the doctor was going to stay to listen to his concerns. Yeah, I think we all can relate to stuff like that where we feel like they're not really listening to you and stuff, but he made it funny. He kept it to a place where I'm not going to say that those scenes were necessarily light, but it was certainly poking fun at like our healthcare industry and like how it feels like to be a patient who doesn't feel like they're being heard. It's not upsetting per se to the watcher, but it is, yeah, I've been there, like I know exactly what that feels like, even though it's in this very, the name is Fantasmas, right?
Yeah.
So even though it's very out there, fantasyland kind of thing, but he does bring it back and root it into reality in these small ways like that, I thought it was a very clever show. It might have a little bit of a hard time finding its audience right away, or I could be shocked and it could be just like completely absorbed by everyone, like, this is amazing. What do you think as a watcher? Now, you watch a lot of different type of shows too.
Yeah.
Did you feel like this is something that if you were just clicking through, or like our kids are in their 20s, do you feel like, I feel like for them, I think they would love it. Like, I think that they would latch onto it right away, the concept.
So caveat, this show, like Caroline said, is not built for me. I am the opposite of what this show was intended for. Like, you tell me that the next, Avengers movie is going to be 5 hours. I'm like, I am there. I can watch the whole thing,
right,
and just soak it up. I think the audience that Fantasmas is intended for, they'd be scared out of their mind to even think of something like that, just sitting in one place for that long. So that being said, I was also a little surprised to find myself laughing at some of these jokes, in spite of my expectations going in. I didn't know what to expect. It started in a way that, I don't know, normally sitcoms don't really have this level of whimsy, is just the best word for it. It is not our world. It is his world that we are seeing. Like she said, the doctor with the time on it, even though that doesn't occur in our world, that's the way he sees visiting the doctor.
And this is the way it feels when you're as the patient. I mean, you feel like the doctor's looking at a clock, and like you've got 15 seconds to explain everything and they stop listening, So, I mean, it was relatable in that way, which is actually, to me, kind of not a young person's experience. Like, I feel like as somebody who is more middle-aged, I feel like it's more that, we see the doctor more often. Lots of young people only see the doctor once a year. So he did manage to tap into some stuff. Even the MELF, which was, it's MELF, just to be clear to you guys as we're pronouncing it. If you weren't as old as we were, you wouldn't have the ELF reference.
That's true.
So, I mean, there was parts that I do think that they did a really good job of like trying to tap into another age bracket and say like, well, if maybe you are not feeling this like super quick, clippy kind of feel, but I'm going to give you some little content stuff, or even having Steve Buscemi in it. I'm going to give you some actors and some people that you recognize and some plot ideas you recognize, and you can pull like some other connections that younger people are not going to pull. So you're going to get this at a different level than they are. They're just going to see it as a puppet. And they're not going to make this other leap that we made immediately, just to timestamp this, Justin Timberlake, just got pulled over, and the cop was so young that when Justin Timberlake was like, this is going to ruin my world tour, he was like, what tour? He didn't recognize him by his name, by what he looked like, or by his driver's license or anything. Right away, you kind of feel that divide between generations, like, oh my God, he's not even recognizable by people anymore. Like that was kind of a shock, right? So there's parts to this show that probably resonate with people younger than us at a different level, but I'm going to encourage people who are more our age to give it a shot, because if you enjoy any type of fantasy, imagination, outside the box thinking, you're going to enjoy it. I mean, there was a whole portion of, he feels like we should have a crayon that's clear. That's where the name comes from, right? There's this whole portion of it that is very creative, very unique. I think if you like art, or just the idea of creating something that hasn't been made before, you're going to see something that's in this that says, I don't know if I 100% get it, but I see that it's unique and I see that it's creative, and I give them huge amounts of praise for thinking of something like that. Because most of the time when we're watching shows, we immediately can do those comparisons that you were doing with the pitch contest, where it's like, oh, this is like this show combined. And it's like, this show, I know we said the Sesame Street format, or the
structure only,
or the SNL format, but after that, I find it very unique, very, very special and different in that way. Give it a chance, you guys. And at first, if you're like turned off, just keep watching, hang in there, because you're going to find a sketch that was going to hit, and then you're going to be hooked. Very much encourage you guys to watch. And Julio was everywhere. I actually saw him on the Today Show just a couple days after we had seen him at ATX. And so that was like kind of fun and different, partially because it was like, there's something about Austin where you feel like things are so different. I mean, they have the motto, keep Austin weird. And there was that element there when we're there and we're experiencing it at ATX. But when you see it in a mainstream media, then like on the Today Show, which feels like our grandma's show or something, it's like, oh my gosh, like he managed to bring a show that is so different to this very mainstream media and really retain himself. He did dress a little bit more conservatively. He did tone down a little bit of like makeup. He did tone down a little bit of his answers, but he was still himself. And I really congratulate Julio for being able to do this and launch a show that's so utterly different. The last thing that we went to that night was the trivia contest, which is always one of our very favorite. It was unusual this year because it was on a Thursday night, which again, a lot of people are still just flying into town. They kind of think of it as a Friday, Saturday, Sunday festival, but in all reality, they packed Thursday.
There were 18 teams, and each team had at least 6 people on it.
At least, yeah. So we ended up winning first place, which was amazing. We had such a great group. It was funny. We had gone to sit down with some people that we played previous year, and their table was already full. And so I was like, man, let's just pick like a random table. And it was so ironic because we ended up sitting down with last year's second place winners, and we had no idea that that's who they were. And so we were a very strong team.
They filled in all the gaps that we didn't know.
Oh my gosh, they did amazing. You guys, it's very fun. This is the type of programming that I adore, where you actually get to participate and be a part of the fan portion of TV watching, where you're not just like listening to a panel or something like that, but you're actually getting to like flex your TV knowledge and talk with other TV fans. My most favorite, they had great food. They had catered food in. It was great. They had, I think that night was, I want to say Greek food.
Was it?
Yeah, it was like gyros or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, that was so different. I was like, that's great. And they had free drinks, and there was, bar, free drinks there. I mean, you guys, it's great. It feels like a party that you're just enjoying, and you get to be with like all your pals here who enjoy TV like you.
And kick their asses.
We always love winning. It's so much fun. It's one of those times when you're in like a bar setting or something like that, doing like pub trivia, people might just be there because it just happened to be the night they're there. They might not even be there for the trivia.
We went to win.
We were there to win. And I was so excited. And the prize this year was to get tickets for next year badges, which prices have gone up. So that is something that is actually an extremely valuable prize. It was almost $600 to attend the festival. But again, you're getting fed, drinks. We never opened a purse or a wallet to pay for anything, food-wise, drinks-wise, that kind of stuff. So
at the trivia contest.
Right. But they had other events like that. Like they had the sing-along. They had other things, which we're definitely going to tell you guys about day 2 and day 3. So stay tuned. This is Caroline.
And this is Paul. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to leave us a comment or question about the show, please come to podclubhouse.com and do it there. And we can get back to you a lot easier than we can if you leave a review with a question or a comment. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening. This has been an original Pod Clubhouse production. Pod Clubhouse is a podcast network dedicated to encouraging collaboration among podcasters and friends to bring a fresh voice and diverse perspective on a wide array of content. Please visit and leave a comment for us at podclubhouse.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast feeds on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find us at Pod Clubhouse. Our DMs are always open, and we'd love to hear from you.